You were created to make a sound, not just to echo the noise. Welcome to the Amplified Era podcast. I am your host, Nadia Morris. I am here to help you push past the fear, identify the silence, and birth the purpose you've been carrying. We are leaving the safety of the shadows and stepping into the spotlight of your destiny. This is season 1, The Great Unmuzzling. So if you are ready to take the mute button of your life, let's get to work. Welcome to another episode of the Amplified Era podcast. I'm your host, Nadia Morris, your purpose midwife, and we are about to get into episode 7, and we are deep into the strategy of phase 2. And the theme we are working with today is access without influence is useless. And so today we are talking about being unmuzzled in the boardroom. So I believe I spoke about this a few episodes ago in the Nice Girl Era episode, where we finally found ourselves into the space that we're supposed to be into the boardroom, and we tend to go silent, and we're just thankful to be in the room, and that is what we are working with. We're just happy to be in the room. We're just thankful to be in the room. We've gotten funding, we've landed a client, but then subconsciously we are in a space where you don't want to challenge the status quo, so you're just settling and just silently sitting in the boardroom. And so the matter of the fact is that you're not invited to the table to be a spectator. And I believe that is where many women falter. When you enter into the boardroom and you become a spectator, you are brought into the room to be a force, right? So gratitude and just being happy to be there is not enough to sustain you in the boardroom. So today we are going to talk about that and why you need to get rid of that gag order that you have on your mouth. And as is customary, we are going to talk about, adding a spiritual principle to what we're talking about today. And we want to look at Queen Esther. Queen Esther, think about it. We understand the story of Esther. She is a Jew. She found her way into the king's palace, but she didn't just get to the palace just to wear a crown and enjoy the amenities. She was placed at one of the highest places in government, highest level of government, to speak uncomfortable truth to the king to save her people. That was her purpose. And we understand the story of Esther, and we understand how Esther was so afraid to step out and to speak up on behalf of her people. And so what I want to link that back to is that when you remain silent in the room, deliverance will come from elsewhere, but you will lose your seat. And how many times has God risen up many of us to be a voice in certain spaces, but we allow the silence to take over. We don't speak up when it's time to address issues. We are silent and we just want to blend in. And we know that Mordecai told Esther, for such a time as this. And many of us are placed in boardrooms unknowingly, not knowing that the Lord has placed us there to be advisors. And this is it. A lot of persons are expecting, because you're a woman of God, you're a man of God, you're not gonna be spitting tongues and flying tongues in the boardroom. There's a time and space for that. You're not going to be doing that in the boardroom. In the boardroom is where you start to craft policy, where you start to set the agenda. And that is why God has placed us in certain spaces to change and to reset the order in certain spaces and certain entities. So if you fail to take up your space in that boardroom and you don't stand up and speak up, somebody else is going to be raised up to do what God is requiring of them. And so you're basically sitting on a solution that your industry, that your family, or your clients desperately need, but you are hiding it behind politeness. So it goes deeper than simply being in a room and being polite and not wanting to shift the status quo, because we know Esther, what she said. You cannot send me to the king to speak to the king, because it could mean death. And many of us, the Lord is putting us in some situations where we need to speak up, but who are we? We are simply being a yes woman, and yes women are liabilities. And executives really push back when they respect pushback that is rooted in data. And I believe that is why so many persons don't speak up, because you don't have the evidence to back what you are saying. But on the other hand, you can't agree with everything, because at the end of the day, it's gonna make you absolutely obsolete. And so we looked at Esther. We understand the Esther principle, that deliverance will come from other places. If you don't speak up, you will eventually lose your seat, because that is not why God has sent you into the boardroom. He has sent you there to make decisions and to do so boldly. All right. And so I want to jump into the redefining this imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome says that I am a fraud, but I want to bring another concept to your attention, and that is the pioneer syndrome, where you are the first to do and the first to be in these spaces. And when you're the first in your family to break through certain grounds, to break certain financial ceilings, maybe you're the first woman of color in your division, and it is registering as unfamiliar territory. So you feel that this unfamiliar territory is a threat to your growth. And so sometimes the silence also stems from that, because you're not familiar with the space that you're in. This is new to you. It's like you're learning as you go. But what you have to understand is that sometimes it's a trauma response, right? When the silence come, when you freeze, or the fawn response, and you masquerade behind that as professionalism, but it's simply that you're a pioneer, you're going first, and there's no roadmap, there's no blueprint for you, because you are the first. And so it's not like you're scared because you're unqualified. You're simply scared because there are no footprints in the sand before you. And so pioneers normally don't get a map, they don't get a blueprint. They have to draw the map for themselves. And so if you're feeling this type of way in the transition, in in moving about, this is simply what is happening to you. You are a pioneer, and you are the first, and you don't have a map, so you simply have to create that map. And I can speak from experience that it is not easy to carry a mantle that is so diverse and so wide. And so sometimes when I find myself trying to straddle corporate, ministry, business, it is difficult because there are so few women out there who are willing to coach and to mentor and to show you what to do. And sometimes you have to learn as you go. Same thing hosting conferences. Yes, there are many persons who convene conferences, but it's nothing like when God gives you an idea that you have to birth, and you simply have to work with the Holy Spirit guiding you through. And so that is how it is sometimes as a pioneer. You are the first to go, and you simply have to draw the map yourself, right? It's not going to be a long podcast today. I want to talk about and shift now into what the currency of the boardroom is really about. A lot of us, we simply like to challenge for challenging sake. We challenge with emotions, and that is not going to cut it in the boardroom. That is not the language of the boardroom. The language that we speak in a boardroom is one about risk and return on investment. So if you're not speaking in that language, it is time to learn how to speak in the language that speaks to the risk that you're managing and what is the return on investment for whatever you're investing in. And so I don't want you to, I want you need to shift from emotions where you're simply saying, okay, I feel like this project is not gonna work. But you have to instead carry the data to indicate that okay, this project is going to expose us to certain types of risk in quarter 3, and I think we need to pivot to whatever idea that you want to put on the table, instead of saying that the project is, you don't feel that the project is going to work. So you have to frame it in a way where you are exposing the strategy that is not going to work using data, and then you pivot to show them an alternative. And an important lesson and point that many don't learn and will never learn, and to in order to matriculate to the boardroom, is when you come with problems, issues. And as an executive, I'm learning that their meetings need to cut them short, because if you are meeting with your team, and at the end of the day what you want them to bring to you are issues that they cannot find a solution for. So if I am having a meeting and I'm being given a laundry list of issues and I don't hear a solution, I'm gonna ask, oh, so what is the solution? What is the best next step? What is gonna happen now? What is the timeline for this? And that is how you have to force other leaders and other managers to come into that frame of mind where you have to think ahead. You have to stop thinking in the immediate space. Yes, and especially in the boardroom, you have to think ahead. It can't be just today, day to day. Yes, we understand the day to day operations of a company, but in the boardroom, what they're looking for is a strategy that is going to take the company forward for the next 6 months, for the next 12 months. What is the 5-year plan for the company? Those are how this is how you need to frame now and move into the boardroom, being more strategic in your speech. So if you haven't learned anything from this segment, is that you need to step away from emotions. You have to use the language of the boardroom, risk return, and focus on strategy, not your emotions, not just simple ideas, but how is it going to benefit the company in the long run. And another tip I could add as well is, after you have given your ideas or presented your point, your strategic points, do not, absolutely not, add in a justification after you've made your point. We love to justify when there's silence. Sometimes I have to give them the 5-second silence rule. and allow them to think about your point without you having to interject and to say anything. And sometimes we try to fill the silence with that nervous laughter or justification, but let silence and the weight of that silence really sit in the room and for them to think about what you have just said. So, what are we really talking about today? We are done with the gag order of gratitude, this gratitude act. And you did not, absolutely not, you didn't fight this hard to get to a table just to take notes for people who are less qualified than you. And I want to remind you that you are not an imposter, you are simply a pioneer. And pioneers have to speak the map into existence. If you don't have a map, you have to draw that map into existence. And so, as is customary, we have homework. Yes, we do. And your homework this week is to break the silence. So, if you find yourself in meetings, you're not contributing anything at all, you have to prepare for your meetings. You know what the agenda is going to be like, and most senior management positions, when you look at the appraisal form that assesses your competence on the social side, or what I say, interpersonal side, there is on ours in our company, there's one aspect that speaks about how much do you contribute or add objectives to the objectives of the organization. What new did you bring to the table? That is actually a performance metric. What new thing, what new idea are you bringing to the table? And so you have to now start pitching yourselves in meetings. So you cannot be silent. So I want you, for the next week, between now and the next episode, I want you to, in a meeting, break your silence. I want you to actively disagree with the one thing or pitch a new idea that you've been sitting on, but you're not going to go with emotion. You're going to use the executive language of risk, return on investment, talk about the strategy, and use that 5-second rule. Count to five in your head. And after you've broken the silence and added what you had to add, then you're going to allow them to now dive into the idea of what it is you have presented. And when you're presenting evidence-based data, we love to see it. Evidence-based data, come with your baselines, show the trend, the trajectory. That is what executives want to hear. That's what your board members want to hear about. How are you managing the risk within the organization? So that, and I've been learning this, that boards are not just there to sit in a meeting, whether it be weekly or a monthly basis. They are responsible. And if you should look at how companies are structured, even in the United States, they are liable for decisions that are made when companies go down. When anything happens in a company, the board of directors can be charged. So I want you to use that lens and mind frame, that you don't step into a boardroom just any old way and expect that, they're going to be happy with that. They need to see action, they need to see movement, and most of all, they want to see the company moving forward. And so we've opened our mouths and we started executing our strategy. And what happens is that you are going to experience resistance in anything that you do. So next week, in episode 8, We are talking about the labor pains of purpose. And it is not what you think. I'm going to teach you how to tell the difference between whether your business venture is failing or whether it's just your vision that is crowning. So don't miss it next week. So I want to also, in my advice corner, add some more tips for you, and especially for those who will matriculate within an organization, moving from maybe a manager to senior management to executive management. You have to, and I spoke about this earlier, about executive presence and positioning yourself and how you carry yourself, how you speak. And one tip I would leave with you today is when you are speaking, you need to elevate your voice, right? You hear that? So that persons can hear you when you speak and take you seriously. You have to learn to know, put some weight on your voice when you speak. And nothing is more disconcerting than hearing managers who are unsure. How you speak, you sound unsure of what you are doing, of what you're leading, of the people that you're leading. It sounds unsure when you speak in hush, low tones. Persons are going to take that as you not being confident enough to lead, and you have to be very careful about that as well. How you speak, how you position, how you sit, how you walk. Persons are watching you before you even get into the boardroom. And if persons over time, you're rushed, you're fidgeting, you come into the meeting, you're so disorganized, persons are watching these things. So when you enter the boardroom, it's not just about what you speak or it's how you speak, how you enter the room, how you carry yourself. Those elements are what board members are looking at when you engage them. So if you get the opportunity to step into a boardroom with your board of directors, listen, it is your time to shine and to show them that this is where you belong. So if you're not fully there yet, but you are on your way into the boardroom, you have to start positioning yourself so that people can take you seriously, that you are executive material. So I am your purpose midwife. I want you to take your seat. And another thing, before I even sign off, when you're invited to a meeting, when you are invited to a meeting, and there is a huge table, this is something that I just dislike generally. There is a huge table, and you are invited to sit at the table, but instead you're going to take a seat on the periphery so that it's like you're hiding in the meeting. I would always say, and I don't remember which former supervisor told me, you are invited to the meeting, you need to sit at the table. And he said, come and sit beside me, because I was going to sit on the periphery. He said, no, you're invited to the meeting, sit at the table and speak, you have a voice, right? So you have to understand that you have a voice, and the voice is what the enemy will always seek to silence. It always starts with your voice. You're unsure of yourself, it starts with the voice. And so he will find every way for you to be inefficient, and that starts with you not being confident enough in your voice to take up the space that you need to in whatever sphere of life that you will find yourself in. So I am your purpose midwife, Nadia Morris, and I hope to see you in the next episode as we dive deeper into the labor pains of purpose. See you on the next one. Thank you for stepping into the Amplified Ear with me today. If this episode sparked a fire in you, don't let it burn out. The best way to support this movement is to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with a woman who is ready to find her voice. You can connect with me on social media at Nadia the Purpose Midwife to keep the conversation going. And remember, the muzzle is off, the silence is broken, and you have permission to take up space. Until next time, keep blooming.